graphs to represent organized data: pie chart, bar graph, line graph, histogram, and ogive. It is important to learn this lesson because in real world, there are many situations where we are asked to present the information we gathered in an organized way. Graphs and charts condense large amounts of information into easy-to-understand formats that clearly and effectively communicate important points. Through graphs, even without reading the discussion, we can provide the reader with a complete idea of the relationship, pattern, or trend. So, at the end of this lesson, you will use appropriate graphs to represent organized data: pie chart, bar graph, line graph, histogram, and ogive.
In the real world, there are many situations where we ask to present the information we gathered in an organized way. One method to do is through a graph. A graph is the pictorial representation of statistical data. Graphs provide the reader with a complete idea of the relationship, pattern, or trend even without reading the discussion. Because of this advantage, graphs are considered important tools in presenting data.
Now, here are the different kinds of graph for the frequency distribution. We have pie chart, bar graph, line graph, histogram, and ogive. Let's start with pie graph. A pie graph is used to show how all parts of something are related to the whole. It can also be called pie chart. It is represented by a circle that is divided into slices to show relative sizes of data. The slices are known as sectors. A pie graph must have the following parts: title of the pie graph and sectors that are arranged from largest to smallest percentage in a clockwise direction from the origin. For example, you make a survey of your friends in school to find out the kind of music they like best. The data gathered are as follows. Now, how to make a pie graph by yourself? Step 1. Make a table from the given data and add all the values or frequencies. So, adding all the frequencies, we now have 7 plus 9 plus 4 plus 2 plus 3, it is equal to 25. So the total is 25. Step 2. To get a percent, divide each value or frequency by the total and multiply by 100. Starting from the first frequency, which is 7, we now have 7 divided by 25 times 100, and it is equal to 28%. Then, just continue the process until you reach the last frequency. Step 3. Multiply the percent by 360 to find the number of degrees for each category. So, first we have 28%. 28% times 360 is equal to 100.8 degrees. Then, continuing the process, we now have, using the table in step 3, we are now ready to start making pie graph. Now, use a compass or any circular object to draw a circle. Now, using a compass, do it this way. Then, use your protractor to measure the degrees of each sector and continue with the rest of the sectors. Now, here is how we do the first sector. And last step, finish up by labeling each sector with a percentage and the name of each data. So we now have, therefore, given the data, this is now the pie graph.
Now, let us proceed to another graphical representation of organized data. Bar graph. Bar graph is used to compare measurements between different groups. It is also used for making direct visual comparison of data with spaces between bars. A bar graph can be represented as horizontal or vertical bars. A horizontal bar graph is a bar graph that has bars which extend from left to right. Note that the bar graph should have title, labels on both the vertical and horizontal scales, and heading for each vertical and horizontal scale. Take a look at this example of a horizontal bar graph. A bar graph can also be presented into vertical bars. When we say vertical bar graph, it is a bar graph that has bars which extend from bottom to top. This is an example of a vertical bar graph. Notice that the location of the vertical and horizontal data is interchanged. For example, your school is having an intramurals, and as a basketball fan, you are making a survey of the heights of 16 members in a basketball team. The data gathered are as follows. Now, how to make a bar graph out of this data? Step 1. Using the given data, decide the title of your graph. Write the frequency on the vertical scale and place the categories in the horizontal scale when using a vertical bar graph. Next, draw a rectangular bar for each category, and its length will be based on the corresponding frequency. Remember that the given data can also be shown in a horizontal bar graph.
Another graphical representation of organized data is line graph. Line graphs are used to display data or information that changes continuously over time. Line graphs allow us to see overall trends, such as an increase or decrease in data over time. Data like changes in temperature, income, population, and the like can be presented by a line graph. In a line graph, data are presented by points and are joined by line segments. Now here are the two compositions of line graph. Now given this line graph, first composition is vertical scale. On the vertical scale, the quantity or the frequency is found. Note, quantity is the total amount or number. Next composition is horizontal scale. On the horizontal scale, the time, which is hours, days, weeks, months, and years, or the categories is found. Note, the composition in the vertical and horizontal scale changes depending upon the given situation. For example, it is almost end of the school year, and as a deserving student, you are requested by the guidance counselor to pass your grades in the core subject of third quarter for scholarship purposes. The data is given below. Step 1. Write the frequency on the vertical scale and place the time or categories in the horizontal scale. Now given this illustration, on the horizontal scale, we now have the categories English, Filipino, mathematics, and science. Now for the vertical scale is the frequency. Since in the given data, the frequencies are 94, 93, 95, and 92, then in our vertical scale, we could have 90 to 96. Note, the line graph should have a title, labels on both horizontal and vertical scales, and heading for each scale. Next step, plot and connect each data to form the line graph. Now plotting the data, we now have English 94, Filipino 93, mathematics 95, science 92. Connecting the points, we now have this graph. Therefore, this is the line graph given this data.
Now, let us proceed to another graphical representations for organized data, the histogram. Histogram is a graph that displays quantitative data by using continuous vertical bars, or the bar graph, of various heights to represent the frequencies of the classes. The nature of histogram is a bar graph with no spaces between. Histograms are used to summarize large data sets graphically and compare measurements to specifications. Here are the parts of histogram. First is the title. The title briefly describes the information that is contained in the histogram. Vertical or the y-axis. The vertical or the y-axis is the scale that shows you the frequencies or the number of times the values within an interval occurred. Horizontal or x-axis. The horizontal or the x-axis shows you the intervals or the scale of values into which the measurement fit. The bars. The bars have two important characteristics, the height and the width. The height represents the number of times the values within an interval occurred. The width represents the length of the interval covered by the bar. It is the same for all bars. For example, the following is a data in tabular form on the collection of shoes of 35 grade 7 students at Alaran Trade High School. Now, here are the steps to construct a histogram out of this data. Step 1. Use the given data from the table. Next, place the data intervals along the horizontal axis. Third, mark the number of frequency on the vertical axis. Note that we use multiples of 5 for this data. The multiples we use in the number of frequencies may vary depending on the given data. And lastly, draw rectangles for each interval. The height of the rectangle tells the number of frequencies for that interval. Note that histograms can be drawn vertically and horizontally. To illustrate a horizontal histogram, observe the next graph using the same given in previous example. Notice that in constructing a histogram, the location of the vertical and horizontal data is interchanged.
Another graphical representation of organized data is ogive. Ogive is a line graph where cumulative frequency of each class is plotted against the class boundary. An ogive graph is a type of frequency polygon that shows cumulative frequencies. This illustration is an example of an ogive. Now, what are the parts of an ogive? First, title. The title identifies the population or sample. Vertical or y-axis. A vertical or y-axis is the scale which is used to identify the cumulative frequencies. Next, horizontal or x-axis. A horizontal or x-axis is the scale which is used to identify the upper or lower class boundaries. Next is curve. Rising or falling curve, which is used to determine how many data values lie above or below a particular value in a data set. In a frequency table, you can find a running total of frequencies. This is called the cumulative frequency. It is useful to know the running total of the frequencies, as this tells you the total number of data items at different stages in the data set. Now, let us have an example on how to compute the cumulative frequency. This is a cumulative frequency table showing the marks obtained by students in a test. Now, to compute the cumulative frequency, first copy the first frequency. Then, add it to the next frequency. So we now have 3 plus 1, and it is equal to 4. Then the result must be added to the next frequency. So we now have 4 plus 4 is equal to 8. Then just continue the process until the last frequency. Make sure that the sum of the cumulative frequency is equal to the total frequency. Now, let us study on how to construct an ogive. Note that there are two types of ogives, the less than ogive and more than ogive. But first, in constructing a less than ogive, follow the following steps. Now, given the data, step 1, prepare a frequency distribution table with overlapping class intervals to make the distribution continuous. Notice that in the given data, the class intervals are overlapping. Since in the first class interval, the upper limit is the same to the lower limit of the next interval, and so on. Step 2. Add a column for the upper limit of the class intervals. So we now have the upper limits of the class intervals are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70. Step 3. Since it is a less than ogive, add a less than cumulative frequency column, or less than CF. So we now have the first frequency is 2, added to the next frequency which is 5, so the result is 7. 7 plus 9 is 16, and so on. Step 4. In the graph, put the upper limit in the x-axis. Now since the upper limits are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70, so in our x-axis we could use 0 to 70. Step 5. Mark the less than cumulative frequency on the y-axis. Now since the cumulative frequency are 2, 7, 16, 30, 37, and 40, so we could use 0 to 45 in our y-axis. Step 6. Plot the points represented by x and y using upper limits as x and their corresponding cumulative frequency as y. Step 7. Join the points by a smooth freehand curve. It looks like an upside-down letter S. Now joining the points, we now have this ogive. Therefore, this is a less than ogive given the data.
Using the same given, now let us construct a more than ogive. First step. Prepare a frequency distribution table with overlapping class intervals to make the distribution continuous. Next, add a column for the lower limit of the class intervals. Then, add a more than cumulative frequency column. Next, in the graph, put the lower limit in the x-axis. Then mark the more than cumulative frequency on the y-axis. Next, plot the points xy using the lower limits, which is x, and their corresponding cumulative frequency, which is y. Then now, join the points by a smooth freehand curve. It looks like an upside-down S.
To use an appropriate graph in representing organized data, we must always consider the kind of problem or data we established. Each graph has its unique use in representing organized data. Here are the indicators. If the data needs to show how all parts of something are related to the whole, then pie graph will be used in representing the organized data. If the data needs to show the comparison of measurements between different groups, then bar graph will be used in representing the organized data. If the data needs to display information that changes continuously over time, then line graph will be used in representing the organized data. If the data needs to display quantitative data by using continuous vertical bars or bar graph of various heights to represent the frequencies of the classes, then histogram will be used in representing the organized data. And if the data needs to show a cumulative frequency of each class that is plotted against the class boundary, then ogive will be used in representing the organized data. Now, considering the problem that we had, what is the most liked subject of the class of grade 7 Baybayin? This would show how all parts in class are related as a whole. So, we will use pie graph in organizing this data. Now, the data gathered are as follows. Now, to use pie graph in representing the data, we follow some steps. Step 1. Make a table from the given data and add all the values or frequencies. As you can see on the table, the total values or frequency is, right, it is 20. Step 2. To get a percent, divide each value or frequency by the total and multiply it by 100. Just like in Araling Panlipunan, the frequency is equal to 2. To get the percent of the total, this will be divided by 20. So we now have 2 divided by 20 times 100. 2 divided by 20 times 100 is equal to 10%. So therefore, the percent of the total of Araling Panlipunan is equal to 10%. Same thing to do with other subjects. Again, frequency divided by 20 times 100. Step 3. Multiply the percent by 360 to find the number of degrees for each category. Just like Araling Panlipunan. Araling Panlipunan has the 10% of the total. So to get the degree of angle, then we multiply 10% by 360. 10% multiplied by 360 is equal to 36. So therefore, the angle of sector of Araling Panlipunan is equal to 36 degrees. Same process to do with other subjects. Step 4. Using the table in step 3, we are now ready to start making pie graph. Use a compass or any circular object to draw a circle. We do it as shown in the picture. Step 5. Use your protractor to measure the degrees of each sector and continue with the rest of the sectors. Here is how we do the first sector. Then finally, finish up by labeling each sector with the percentage and the name of each data.
Complicated?
No! Now since you already learned how to represent organized data using graphs, then it's time to get your activity sheet in this lesson and answer the given activity. Take your time in answering the activity.
If you have questions or clarifications, you may contact the number of your teacher printed below your activity sheet. To end, always remember that the essence of mathematics is not to make simple things complicated,
But to make complicated things simple.
Grade 8 learners, stay tuned and get ready for Math 8 is coming next.
Good luck and God bless everyone!
Welcome back mga grade 8 Mathonics.
Today is another brand new day to learn another lesson in mathematics.
Dito sa nag-isang programa niyo,
Ang Tangko! We learn all things, ang saya! Ready na ba kayo?
Hooray! Now, let us begin.
Today, we will learn on how to prove inequalities in a triangle. Importance of the lesson. Writing proofs is an important skill in learning geometry. It will develop the observation skills, deductive thinking, logical reasoning, and mathematical communication. At the end of the lesson, you will prove inequalities in a triangle.
Theorem is a mathematical statement that we know is true and which has a proof. So now, it is our time to prove the inequalities of triangles. Theorem 1 of triangle inequality. It states that if one side of a triangle is longer than a second side, then the angle opposite the first side is larger than the angle opposite the second side. Now to prove this, given triangle AMP, MP is greater than MA. Construct AE such that MEP and AM is congruent to AE. Prove that measure of angle A is greater than measure of angle P. Now here is the proof with the following statement with its corresponding reason. First statement, triangle AMP with MP greater than MA and side AM is congruent to side AE. Reason given. Next, triangle AME is an isosceles triangle. Reason, definition of isosceles triangle. And with that, angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Reason, isosceles triangle theorem. So, it follows that measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2. Reason, definition of congruent angle. Measure of angle PAE plus measure of angle 1 would be equal to measure of angle PAM. Reason, angle addition postulate. So, measure of angle PAM is greater than measure of angle 1. Reason, definition of greater than. Measure of angle PAM is greater than measure of angle 2. Reason, substitution. And with that, measure of angle 2 is greater than measure of angle P. Reason, exterior angle inequality.
Next, we have triangle inequality theorem 2. It states that if one angle of a triangle is larger than a second angle, then the side opposite the first angle is longer than the side opposite the second angle. Now let's prove this theorem. Given triangle LMN, measure of angle L is greater than measure of angle N. Now let's prove that side MN is not greater than side LM. Now, here is the proof. First statement, side MN is not greater than side LM, such that MN is equal to LM, or MN is less than LM. Reason, temporary assumption. Next, considering MN is equal to LM. If MN is equal to LM, then triangle LMN is an isosceles triangle. Reason, definition of isosceles triangles. Consequently, angle L is equal to angle N. Reason, base angles of isosceles triangles are congruent. Now, the assumption that MN is equal to LM is false. Reason, the conclusion that angle L is congruent to angle N contradicts the given that measure of angle L is greater than the measure of angle N. Third statement, considering MN is less than LM. Now, if MN is less than LM, then measure of angle L is less than measure of angle N. Reason, triangle inequality theorem number 1. So, the assumption that MN is less than LM is false, since the conclusion that measure of angle L is less than measure of angle N contradicts the given that measure of angle L is greater than the measure of angle N. Therefore, the statement MN is greater than LM must be true. Reason, the assumption that MN is not greater than LM contradicts the known fact that measure of angle L is greater than the measure of angle N.
Now let us proceed to proving triangle inequality theorem 3. Triangle inequality theorem 3 states that the sum of the lengths of any two sides of a triangle is greater than the length of the third side. To prove, given triangle LMN, where side LN is greater than side LM but less than side MN, let us prove that MN plus LN is greater than LM. MN plus LM is greater than LN. Side LM plus side LN is greater than side MN. Now here is the proof. Notice that since side MN is greater than side LN and that MN is greater than LM, then it's obvious that MN plus LM is greater than LN and MN plus Ln is greater than Lm are true. Hence, what remains to be proved is the third statement, which is Lm plus Ln is greater than Mn. To continue, let us construct Lp as an extension of Lm, such that L is between M and P. Lp is congruent to Ln, and triangle LNP is formed. Here is now the following statements with its equivalent reason. Based on the figure, Lp is equal to Ln. Reason by construction. Next, triangle LNP is an isosceles triangle. Reason, definition of isosceles triangle. This follows that angle LNP is congruent to angle LPN. Reason, base angles of isosceles triangle are congruent. Angle LPN is congruent to angle MPN. Reason, reflexive property. And that angle LNP is congruent to angle MPN. Reason, transitive property. Angle MNP is congruent to angle LNM plus angle LNP. Reason, angle addition postulate. Then, angle MNP is equal to angle LNM plus angle MPN. Reason, substitution property. With that, angle MNP is greater than angle MPN. Reason, property of inequality. Then side MP is greater than side MN. Reason, triangle inequality theorem 2. And so, side LM plus side LP is equal to side MP. Reason, segment addition postulate. Side LM plus side LP is greater than side MN. Reason, substitution property. And with that, therefore, side LM plus side LN is greater than side MN. Reason, substitution property. Next is exterior angle inequality theorem. This theorem states that the measure of an exterior angle of a triangle is greater than the measure of either remote interior angle. Now to prove, given triangle LMN with exterior angle LNP, prove that angle LNP is greater than angle MLN. To prove, first, let us prove that angle LNP is greater than angle MLN by constructing the following. First, midpoint Q on LN such that LQ is congruent to NQ, and MR through Q such that MQ is congruent to QR. But wait, let us put it this way first, since proving this theorem will be part of your activity later. Can you figure out now the answers? Make use of hints to aid you in your thinking.
Next theorem is hinge theorem or SAS triangle inequality theorem. This theorem states that if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, but the included angle of the first triangle is greater than the included angle of the second, then the third side of the first angle is longer than the third side of the second. Now, let us prove this theorem. Given triangle CAN and triangle LYT, side CA is congruent to side LY. Side AN is congruent to side YT. And angle A is greater than angle Y. Now let's prove that side CN is greater than side LT. Now here is the proof. First, construct segment AW such that AW is congruent to side AN and is congruent to side YT. Next, segment AW is between side AC and side AN, and angle CAW is congruent to angle LYT. Consequently, triangle CAW is congruent to triangle LYT by SAS or side angle side triangle congruence postulate. So, Segment CW is congruent to segment LT because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Second, construct the bisector AH of angle NAW such that point H is on side CN and angle NAH is congruent to angle WAH. Consequently, triangle NAH is congruent to triangle WAH by SAS or side-angle-side triangle congruence postulate because AH is congruent to AH by reflexive property of equality and AW is congruent to AN from construction number 1. So, WH is congruent to HN because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Now, here are the following statements with their corresponding reasons. First, CN is congruent to CH plus HN. Reason, segment addition postulate. Next, CN is congruent to CH plus WH. Reason, substitution property of equality. Third, in triangle CHW, CH plus WH is greater than CW. Reason, triangle inequality theorem 3 that states that the sum of any two sides of a triangle is greater than the third side. Next statement, CN is greater than CW. Reason, substitution property of equality using statement 2 in 3. Then, therefore, CN is greater than LT. Reason, substitution property of equality using statement in construction 1 in statement 4.
Now let us have the proof of converse of hinge theorem or SSS triangle inequality theorem. This theorem states that if two sides of one triangle are congruent on two sides of another triangle, but the third side of the first triangle is longer than the third side of the second, then the included angle of the first triangle is larger than the included angle of the second. To prove, given triangle ODG and triangle LUV, with side OD congruent to side LU, side DG is congruent to side UV, side OG is greater than side LV. Proof that angle D is greater than angle U. Now here is the proof with equivalent statements and its corresponding reasons. Angle D is congruent to angle U or angle D is lesser than angle U. Reason, assumption that angle D is not greater than angle U. Now considering angle D congruent to angle U, it's given that side OD is congruent to side LU. Side DG is congruent to side UV. If angle D is congruent to angle U, then triangle ODG is congruent to triangle LUV. Reason, SAS or side-angle-side triangle congruence postulate. Now from the congruence, side OG is congruent to side LV. Reason, corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Then, the assumption that angle D is congruent to angle U is false. Reason, side OG is congruent to side LV, contradicts the given that side OG is greater than side LV. Now considering that angle D is less than angle U, if angle D is less than angle U, then side OG is less than side LV. Reason, SAS or side-angle-side inequality theorem or hinge theorem. The assumption that angle D is less than angle U is false. Reason, side OG is less than side LV, contradicts the given that side OG is greater than side LV. Then therefore, angle D is greater than angle U must be true. Reason, assumption that angle D is not greater than angle U is proven to be false.
Let us consider example number 1. Given triangle BOC with exterior angle BCD. Prove angle BCD is greater than angle OBC. To prove that angle BCD is greater than angle OBC, we need to construct the following. Number 1, midpoint of A on segment BC such that segment BA is congruent to segment CA. Number 2, segment OF through A such that segment OA is congruent to segment FA. Let us do the two-column proof. First column statements, second column reasons. First statement, segment BA is congruent to segment CA and segment OA is congruent to segment FA. And the reason is by construction. Number 2, angle 3 is congruent to angle 4 and the reason is vertical angles are congruent. Number 3, triangle BAO is congruent to triangle CAF and the reason is SAS triangle congruence postulate. Number 4 statement, angle OBC is congruent to angle 1 and the reason is corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent or CP-CTC. Number 5, angle BCD is equal to angle 1 plus angle 2 and the reason is angle addition postulate. Number 6, angle BCD is greater than angle 1 and the reason is comparison property of inequality. And number 7, we prove now that angle BCD is greater than angle OBC and the reason is substitution property of inequality. Let's proceed example number 2. Observe the figure. Given segment JK is congruent to segment LK. Prove segment JM is greater than segment LM. Let us do the two-column proof. First column, statements. Second column, reasons. First statement, segment JK is congruent to segment LK, and the reason is given. Number 2 statement, segment KM is congruent to segment KM, and the reason is reflexive property of congruence. Therefore, we now prove that segment JM is greater than segment LM, and the reason is Henge theorem.
Complicated?
No. Now since you know already the proofs of the different triangle inequality theorems, then it's time to get your activity sheet in this lesson and answer the given activity. Just take your time in answering the activities.
If you have questions or clarifications, you may contact the number of your teacher printed below your activity sheets.
To end, always remember that learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere.
So, education must continue. Grade 9 learners, stay tuned and get ready for Math 9 is coming next. Good luck and God bless everyone! welcome back mga grade 9 Mathonics.
Today is another brand new day to learn another lesson in mathematics.
Dito sa nag-isang programa nyo,
Ang Tangko! We learn all things ang saya! Ready na ba kayo?
hooray! Now, let us begin.
Now learners, today we will learn how to illustrate angle of elevation and angle of depression. Now what is the importance of this lesson? Well, this lesson is important because angles of elevation and depression is used often in word problems, especially those involving a person's line of sight as they look up at a certain object. Also, these angles can be used to solve problems involving trigonometric functions such as sine, cosine, and tangent, and also the inverse of trigonometric functions. Now learners, take note that at the end of this lesson, you will illustrate angle of elevation and angle of depression in a given problem by following some steps.
Consider this situation. My younger brother and I are playing badminton. As I hit the shuttlecock, it landed on the roof. Using a 4-meter ladder, will I reach the top of the roof? As to what angle will I incline the ladder? Is the height of the ladder enough to reach the 3-meter rooftop? Is the ladder not so steep? Will I not be scared to go up? As I reach the top of the roof, my younger brother is cheering at me from afar. Can he catch the shuttlecock if I am going to throw it to him? How far is my brother from me?
Well, we can answer those questions earlier as we go through our lesson. But first, let us define some significant terms involving angles of elevation and angles of depression. Line of sight. Line of sight is an imaginary line that your eye follows when looking at something. Next, angle of elevation. The angle of elevation is the angle between the horizontal line and the line of sight when looking at the object above. Next, angle of depression. The angle of depression is the angle between the horizontal line and the line of sight when looking at the object below.
Example. In the following figures, identify the segment that represent the line of sight and identify the angles, if any, that represent the angle of elevation or angle of depression. First figure. Line of sight would be side xy and side xz. Angle of elevation would be angle yxw. And angle of depression is angle wxz. Another figure. Right, the line of sight is side AC. Angle of elevation is angle BAC. And angle of depression is angle DCA.
Now how to illustrate angle of elevation or angle of depression in a given problem? Well, to illustrate angle of elevation or angle of depression in a given problem, of course, we follow these steps. Step 1. Draw an illustration and label it with the information given in the problem. Step 2. Identify the given angle of elevation or depression. Now let us have an example. Illustrate the angle of elevation or angle of depression in each problem using the given information. Use any variable for the unknown. Problem 1. A nurseryman plants a new tree and attaches a guy wire to help support the tree while its roots take hold. An 8-foot wire is attached to the tree and to a stake in the ground. From the stake in the ground, the angle of elevation of the connection with the tree is 42 degrees. Find to the nearest tenth of a foot the height of the connection point on the tree. Now to illustrate the angle of elevation in this given problem, we follow these steps. Step 1. Draw an illustration and label it with the information given in the problem. Now these are the given information in the problem. 8 feet. This is the length of the guy wire that is attached to the tree and to a stake in the ground. 42 degrees. This is the angle of elevation of the connection with the tree from the stake in the ground. Note that the angle of elevation is from the ground up. We have also x. It is the unknown. It is the height of the connection point on the tree. Now, based on the given information in the problem, we come up with this illustration. It is assumed that the tree is vertical, making it perpendicular with the ground. When we say guy wire, it is a support wire used to hold a newly planted tree in place, preventing it from the bending or uprooting during high winds. Notice that our illustration shows a right triangle. Now, since we now have our illustration and with its label, then let us proceed to our step 2. Step 2 is we are going to identify the given angle of elevation. Now, since it is stated in the problem that from the stake in the ground, the angle of elevation of the connection with the tree is 42 degrees, then the angle of elevation 42 degrees is located in this part of this right triangle. Take note that angle of elevation is from the ground up. Next problem. From the top of a fire tower, a forest ranger sees his partner on the ground at an angle of depression of 40 degrees. Now, if the tower is 45 feet in height, how far is his partner from the base of the tower to the nearest tenth of a foot? Now, to illustrate the angle of depression in this given problem, we follow these steps. Step 1. We draw an illustration and we label it with the information given in the problem. Now, based on the given problem, these are the given information. We have 45 feet. This is the height of the tower. So, it is assumed that the tower is vertical, making it perpendicular with the ground. We have also 40 degrees. This is the angle of depression from the top of a fire tower to the ground. And we have also x. This is the unknown or the distance of his partner from the base of the tower. Now, based on this given information in the problem, we come up with this illustration. Take note that in our illustration, it is assumed that the tower is vertical, making it perpendicular with the ground. Now, since we now have our illustration, so we are going to proceed to our step 2. In our step 2, we are going to identify the given angle of depression. Now, since it is stated in the problem that from the top of a fire tower, a forest ranger sees his partner on the ground at an angle of depression of 40 degrees, so the angle of depression in the given problem is located in this part of this illustration. Remember, angle of depression is the angle between the horizontal line and the line of sight when looking at the object below.
Complicated?
No. Now, since you know already how to illustrate and solve problems involving angles of elevation and angles of depression, then it's time to get your activity sheet in this lesson and answer the given activities. Just take your time in answering the activities.
If you have questions or clarifications, you may contact the number of your teacher printed below your activity sheet.
To end, always remember that the only way to learn mathematics
Is to do mathematics. Grade 10 learners, stay tuned and get ready for Math 10 is coming next. Good luck and God bless everyone! Hello! Welcome back mga grade 10 Mathenics!
Today is another brand new day to learn another lesson in mathematics.
Dito sa nag-isang programa nyo,
Ang Tangkub! We learn all things ang saya! Ready na ba kayo?
hooray! Now, let us begin.
Today's lesson is about calculating measures of positions, the quartile, decile, and percentile of a group data. As we all know that mathematics is essential part of our life and the importance of math and calculation is well known in the fields of engineering, finance, and artificial intelligence. For you learners, it is very important to know and to be exposed in calculations and how knowledge of mathematics can somehow help in choosing right career options. In addition to, calculation also is very important in household budgeting planning. And with that, at the end of the lesson, you learners are expected to calculate specified measures of positions of a given set of group data.
Now, let's start with interpreting quartiles. Quartiles are a form of percentiles. Quartiles split the distribution into 4. A good way of remembering this is that quartile sounds similar to quarter, which is a fourth. Here is how quartiles are illustrated. In interpreting quartiles, you will look into the correct percentage equivalent. Quartiles are the score points which divide a distribution into 4 equal parts. The quartile 1 or the first quartile, quartile 2 or the second quartile, quartile 3 or the third quartile, and quartile 4 or the fourth quartile. The first quartile is called the lower quartile. The second is called the middle quartile. The third is called the upper quartile. And the fourth is called the maximum. 25% of the distribution are below the first quartile. 50% of the distribution are below the second quartile. And 75% are below the third quartile. This shows that quartile 2 is greater than quartile 1 but less than quartile 3. Question: what percent is equivalent to quartile 1? Right, it is equivalent to 25%. Another question. The table shows the hourly wages in pesos of the 50 workers in the Paradise Farm. In solving for the quartile 2, the result is 123. What does it imply? Well, first, let us identify the given. Based on the given, quartile 2 is equal to 123. Now, let us identify the equivalent of quartile 2. Based on the definition of quartile 2 is equivalent to 50%. Hence, we must use the 50% in interpreting 123 hourly wage. Now, let us write the interpretation. This means that 50% of the workers have an hourly wage of 123 pesos and below. If we will examine deeper, half the population of the workers in the Paradise Farm receive an hourly wage of 123 pesos and below. Also, the other half of the workers earn above 123 pesos every hour. Now, if there are 50 workers in the farm, then there are 25 workers receiving an hourly wage worth of 123 pesos. And the rest of the workers, which is also 25, are earning more than 123 pesos every hour. Do you get it?
Good! Now, let us proceed to the next measure of position, the deciles. Now, let us interpret deciles. Deciles are percentiles that split the data into groups of 10%, meaning every decile contains 10% of the data. Here is how deciles are illustrated. In interpreting deciles, you will look into the correct percentage equivalent to first decile, second decile, third decile, fourth decile, fifth decile, sixth decile, seventh decile, 8th decile, and 9th decile. It is very easy to remember their percentage since each decile contains the 10% of the distribution. Hence, when we say decile 1 or first decile, it contains 10% of the distribution. When we say decile 2 or second decile, it contains 20% of the distribution, and so on. Now, let us have the first question. What percent is equivalent to D5 or fifth decile? Correct. It is equivalent to 50%. Next question. Instructor Yumi gave a test to her students in statistics. The students finished the test in 20 minutes. This time, 20 minutes is the third decile of the allotted time. What does this mean? First, identify the given. Now, based on the given problem, the given is 20 minutes, which is the decile 3 or third decile. Second, identify the equivalent of the third decile. We know that third decile is equivalent to 30%. Hence, in interpreting 20 minutes of the allotted time, we must use 30%. Next, write the interpretation. We know that the third decile is equal to 30%, and based on the given problem, the third decile is 20 minutes. This means that the learners finished the test within 30% of the allotted time. You can say it is good because it means the students finished the test in a short period of time. If we will examine deeper, it is understood that the teacher gave the learners around 70 minutes to finish the test. Gladly, the students finish it in just 20 minutes. It means to say that the learners did the test in a short period of time.
Easy, right? Well, that is how we interpret decile. This time, let us proceed to the third measure of position, the percentile. Well, in percentile, you would interpret exactly the same as what you did on quartiles and deciles. The only difference is that the equivalent percentages. Percentiles. It indicates the percentage of scores that fall below a particular value. They tell you where a score stands relative to other scores. Here is how percentiles are illustrated. In interpreting percentiles, you will look into the correct percentage equivalent to percentile 1, percentile 2, percentile 3, up to percentile 99. It is very easy to remember their percentage since each percentile contains the 1% of the distribution. Hence, when we say percentile 1, it is also equal to 1%. Percentile 2 contains 2%, and so on. In other words, percentiles determine the value for 1%, 2%, 3%, up to 99% of the data. Percentile 30, or the 30th percentile of the data, means 30% of the data have values less than or equal to percentile 30. Now, let us have question number 1. Rendell is the CEO of a big company in Davao City. His salary is in the 90th percentile. Should Rendell be glad about his salary or not? Explain your answer. Now, to interpret this, let us first identify the given. Rendell's salary is in the 90th percentile. Then now, let us identify the equivalent of percentile 90. Well, we have just learned that percentile 90 is equal to 90%. This problem requires you to inspect whether Rendell will be glad of his salary or not. To do this, you need to note first that percentile 90 means 90% of Rendell's co-workers receive a salary less than what he receives. Now, let us interpret. Percentile 90 is equivalent to 90%, and that is equivalent to Rendell's salary. Now, what does it mean? This means that 90% of the employees receive salary that is less than or equal to his salary, and 10% of the employees receive a salary that is greater than his salary. Rendell should be pleased with his salary. If there are 100 employees in this company, then there are 90 workers receiving less salary than Rendell. It also means that out of 100 workers, there are only 10 of them receiving higher salary than him. With these informations, you can clearly say that Rendell will be happy about his salary. Another question. The table shows the hourly wages in pesos of the 50 workers in the Paradise Farm. Now, interpret the value of the percentile 80, which is equal to 133.5. So to interpret this, first, we identify the given. Percentile 80 is equal to 133.5. Now, what is the equivalent of percentile 80? Right, percentile 80 is equal to 80%. Hence, in interpreting the 133.5 pesos hourly wage, we must use the figure 80%. Now let us interpret. Percentile 80 is equivalent to 80%, and that is equivalent to 133.50 pesos. What does this mean? This means that 80% of the workers have an hourly wage of 133.50 pesos and below. If we will examine deeper, then 80% of the population of the workers in the Paradise Farm receive an hourly wage of 133.50 pesos and below, and the remaining 20% of the workers earn above 133.50 pesos every hour. If there are 50 workers in the farm, then there are 40 workers receiving an hourly wage worth of 133.50 pesos, and the rest 10 workers are earning more than 133.50 pesos every hour.
On the modeling part of your self-learning materials, you can see a cumulative frequency and cumulative percentages table for the distribution of ages of 35 diabetics individuals. From the table presented, you are tasked to calculate a specified measures of positions, which are the 70th percentile or P70, third decile, and first quartile or simply the lower quartile. To perform each task, the second table shown on page 2 of your self-learning materials is needed. On the table, there is a column for listing cumulative frequency. In calculating the 70th percentile, compute first the k times n over 100 in order to determine the class interval containing the p sub 70. The value of k is 70 because that is the specific percentile rank we need to calculate. The value of n is 35 as the total number of diabetic individuals. So we have k times n over 100 equals to 70 times 35 all over 100 equals to 2,450 divided by 100 equals to 24.5. The value of 24.5 tells us that the 24.5 score is contained in the class interval 62 to 72. Looking at the column less than cumulative frequency, 24.5 is above 22 but not higher than 27. Therefore, we have k times n over 100 equals to 24.5. The value of our L is 61.5. The CF is 22. F is 5. I is 11. The formula pattern in calculating percentile is P sub k equals L plus Kn over 100 minus Cf all over F times quantity I. Then by substitution, we have P sub 70 equals 61.5 plus 70 times 35 over 100 minus 22 divided by 5 times the quantity of 11. 61.5 plus 2,450 over 100 minus 22 all over 5 times quantity of 11. 61.5 plus 24.5 minus 22 all over 5 times quantity of 11. 61.5 plus 2.5 divided by 5 times quantity 11. 61.5 plus 5.5, and it will give you the answer of 67. Therefore, P sub 70 is equal to 67. The second task is calculating third decile of the set of group data. Just like what we did in calculating the percentile, compute first k times n over 10 in order to determine the class interval containing d sub 3. Kn over 10 is equal to 3 times 35 over 10, and that is equal to 105 divided by 10, and it will give you an answer of 10.5. The value 10.5 tells us that the 10.5 score or age is contained in the class interval between 40 to 50. Looking at the column for the less than cumulative frequency, 10.5 is above 6 but not higher than 13. Therefore, we have Kn over 10 equals 10.5, L equals 39.5, CF equals 6, F equals 7, and I equals to 11. The deciles are computed in a manner similar to percentiles. The formula is used for the computation. D sub k is equal to L plus k times n over 10 minus CF all over F times the quantity of I. Then by substitution, we have D sub 3 equals 39.5 plus 3 times 35 over 10 minus 6 all over 7 times the quantity 11. 39.5 plus 105 over 10 minus 6 all over 7 times 11. 39.5 plus 10.5 minus 6 all over 7 times quantity 11. 39.5 plus 4.5 divided by 7 times quantity 11. 39.5 plus 49.5 divided by 7. 39.5 plus 7.07 will give you an answer of 46.57. Therefore, D sub 3 is equal to 46.57. The quartile are also computed in the same way for the percentiles and deciles. Compute first Kn over 10 in order to determine the class interval containing the lower quartile or the Q sub 1. Kn over 4 is equal to 1 times 35 all over 4. That will give you an answer of 35 divided by 4 equals to 8.75. The value 8.75 tells us that 8.75 score or ages is contained in the class interval 40 to 70. Looking at the column for less than cumulative frequency, 10.5 is above 6 but not higher than 13. Therefore, we have Kn over 10 equals to 10.5, L equals 39.5, CF equals 6, f equals 7 and I equals 11. The formula below are used for the computation. Q sub k is equal to L plus k times n over 4 minus Cf all over f times the quantity I. Then by substitution, we have Q sub 1 equals to 39.5 plus 1 times 35 over 4 minus 6 all over 7 times the quantity of 11. 39.5 plus 35 over 4 minus 6 all over 7 times the quantity of 11. 39.5 plus 8.75 minus 6 all over 7 times quantity of 11. 39.5 plus 2.75 over 7 times quantity of 11. Next, 39.5 plus 30.25 all over 7. 39.5 plus 4.32, that will give you an answer of 43.82. Therefore, Q sub 1 is equal to 43.82.
Now, since you already learned how to interpret the measures of positions, the quartiles, deciles, and percentiles, then it's time to get your activity sheet in this lesson and answer the given activity. Just take your time in answering the activity.
If you have questions or clarifications, you may contact the number of your teacher printed below your activity sheet. To end, always remember that learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere.
So, education must continue.
Good luck and God bless everyone! We hope that you have learned the most essential lessons you need to master. See you on our next episodes. This has been Ang Tangkub.
It's tangkub, tangkub, tangkub time. We learn all things, it's very fun, masaya. Tutok na.
Kung gusto mong maglingaw-lingaw, mga
tayo na. Buksan ang mga radyo, lina at matuto sa mga aral sa mundo. Tayo na. Tumutok na sa TV, mag-aral ng maigi to get the lessons easily. It's tangkub, tangkub, tangkub time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkub, tangkub, tangkub time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. Tayo na. Let's come and learn together, supporting one another. We love, we care, we share. It's tangkub, tangkub. masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. Tangkop, tangkop time.
The Department of Education, Division of Tangub City, in partnership with the local government unit of Tangub, presents Ang Tangkub, Transforming Advancement in the New Normal, guiding K-12 learners under broadcast media and instructional program, crafted in response to the need of making education possible and accessible to students at the comfort of their homes. It covers the most essential competencies, thematically layered in drama plays which were originally written, directed, and performed by teachers to see to it that education is securely provided. This is Ang Tangkub.
Tayo, tayo na. Buksan ang mga radyo, lina at matuto sa mga aral sa mundo. Tayo, tayo na. Tumutok na sa TV, mag-aral ng maigi to get the lessons easily. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. Tayo, tayo na. Let's come and learn together, supporting one another. We love, we care, we share. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na.
Happy Tuesday, everyone! Welcome to Astral Academy Cyber School. And yes, we are live this afternoon via tayo Facebook page and Astral Academy Facebook page. And today is Tuesday, and pag Tuesday, kami ang inyong makauban. Again, I am Miss Alvin Nueva.
And of course, Ma'am Gay Soterio Saavedra. So learners, welcome sa ito ang Quarter 4, Week 2 here in Astral Academy Facebook Live. And again, since today is Tuesday, of course, it is Mathematics Day para sa ito ang Grade 7 to Grade 10 learners.
Okay, so hello and welcome mga mathematics. So Ma'am Gay, sugdan na nato. Mag-start na sa itong Grade 7 lesson. Okay, so our competency for this week for Grade 7 is to gather statistical data and organize this data in a frequency distribution table. So mo ginanga to ang two competencies for this week, Ma'am Gay. Okay, so why are we learning these things or these lessons? Well, learning these lessons are important because in gathering statistical data and organizing this data in a frequency distribution table would help us in getting the different responses to the questions we seek for answers. So, katong mga problems, Ma'am Gay.
Yes.
And we could also make recommendations or solutions to the problems we want to solve. Alright. So, at the end of this this Facebook Live, you learners sa inyong SLM, you will gather statistical data and organize data in a frequency distribution table. Okay, so before mag-target sa itong competency, Ma'am Gay, let us have a short definition on what is a collection of data. Ma'am Gay?
So when we say collection of data, it is done after the desired population is known. So in conducting a study, the population or sample to be taken should be parallel to the objective of the study.
Kaya dili magid pwede nga ang imong i-gather nga data dili related sa imong study nga research or gihimo. Okay, so before we can gather data, we make sure that the statistical instrument used in answering problem is already floated to the respondents. Kay dili magid ta maka-gather sa data kung wala pa nato na distribute ang mga questionnaires or statistical instruments. Okay? So in gathering the data, we simply collect. This means we simply collect the different responses of all our respondents using the different methods. So by the way, when we talk about respondents, these are actually the people nga involved or involves atong study or problem nga imuhang buhat. Okay? Now then, using the different methods. So it could be direct method or indirect method. Okay, so now here are the steps on to how to gather the data. So first, we start with the problem, of course. Okay, wala man kabaloon sa data itong i-gather if wala tayo problem, right? Okay, so balik ta sa ato ang previous problem with last episode. What is the most liked subject of the grade 7 baybayin? Alright? So, mo tong diha ta mag-start sa to ang pag-gather sa data. We have to go back always with the problem. The next to that is, we are going to identify on who and how many are our respondents. Okay? So, dapat kabalupod ta kung kinsa ang ato ang tagaan sa atong statistical instrument o pila pud kabuk ato ang hatagan. Okay? So, balik ta sa itong problem, what is the most liked subject of the class of grade 7 baybayin? So, basically, ang ato ang tagaan yun, Ma'am Gay, ang respondents sa itong study is the students of the grade 7 baybayin. And how many are there? Are them? Okay? So, basically, ato yung pangitaon unsa pila to kabuk mga estudyante sa ana nga klase. So, there are 20 students enrolled in grade 7 baybayin. So, basically, here are the list of our respondents. Okay? So, listahan. There are 20 students enrolled in the grade 7 baybayin. So, basically, kining 20 ato ang tagaan sa atong statistical instrument. Okay? Anyway, you can find this one on your printed materials. Okay, so using the direct or indirect method in gathering the data. We have to use direct or indirect method. Okay, so nakita natin sa itong video lesson kaganina on sa difference sa direct method and indirect method. So gamay lang nga overview, Ma'am Gay, on sa gani mga naa sa direct method.
Alright, so for the direct method, so we have these two. So we have the observation and interview. So from the word itself, direct. So pwede tayo interview diretso or through observation.
Yes.
Okay? So when we say observation, the researcher sees the situation directly. So sama sa akong giingon kaganina. And when we say interview, this can be classified as personal, telephone, or online interview. So it is done through direct conversations with the interviewee or the respondent.
Yes. Okay, so indirect method also consists of questionnaire. So when you talk about questionnaire, this method uses a questionnaire. Kanang na a set of questions. Okay? Then, it could be registration. So when we talk about registration, this method gathers data from legal documents imposed by laws such as registered certificates. Okay? So some examples would be the population of Region 10. So kailangan yun natin maabot na sa law, registrar
office,
or registrar's office for the population for the Region 10. Dili gid mga buot-buot or inana ma'am gay, no? So those are two methods in gathering the data. It could be direct method or indirect method. Now, balik ta sa atong problem. Now, using the direct method, and that is the interview. Okay? Si teacher nag-ask sa 20 students, balik ta sa atong, what is the most liked subject of the class of the grade 7 baybayin? So, about their liked subject, ga-interview si teacher. So, the teacher already gathered the data through the interview, and here is now the gathered data. Okay, as you can see, we have here the name of the students, and the second column is their preferred like subject. So that is how we simply gather the data. Simple lang jud, mag-collect lang ta og data. Okay? Now next. Okay, so the second competency that we have is organizing the data in a frequency distribution table. So since we already have here our gathered data, so unsa tong next nga buhaton ani Ma'am Gay? So mao na natin i-organize nato ni nga data through the frequency distribution table. So we also have steps. Ma'am Gay, can you do the step 1?
Alright, so in organizing data in frequency distribution table, we follow these steps. So first step would be, we are going to create a table with 3 columns. So we are going to label each column accordingly. So we have in the first column, the liked subject of the respondents. And then for the second column, we have the tally. And of course, for the third column, we have the frequency.
Okay, so just like this example, so maghimo sa tagtulo ka table. So our study is what is the most liked subject of the class of the grade 7 baybayin. So the first column would be the liked subjects. The second one is the tally, and the third one is for the frequency. Now, next step is we write the categories or the names of subjects in the first column. So, unsa man nga mga subjects ang, or mo ang mga options na ito, Ma'am Gayno, sa itong statistical instrument. So, basically, we have here Araling Panlipunan, English, ESP, Filipino, MAPE, Mathematics, and Science. So, maura ni ang subjects nga naa sa class sa grade 7 baybayin.
Okay.
So, mo na itong ibutang sa ato ang like subject, and that is our step 2. For our third step, Ma'am Gay,
so for our third step, we're going to tally the number of occurrences of the liked subject. So starting from the first learner on the list, we have Agpoon. Jeff Norex.
Yes.
So he likes mathematics, so we put 1 tally mark on the tally column, no, sa mathematics na part.
Sa mathematics
Okay.
part.
And then after that, for the second learner on the list is Alamag John Mark. So he likes science, so we put 1 tally mark on the tally column aligned with science. So inanara, kung naay math isa, then itali po na to sa
Tally nga column.
yes, sa row sa subject, and so on.
So, same process will be done up to the last learner. So, basically, mo na ni ato ang resulta sa ato ang tally sa step 3. Alright? So, after na matali ang tanang like subjects of each learner, then we are now ready to count the tally marks and write the frequency in the third column. So, ipon na nato. Mo na dahil ni siya. Sa Araling Panlipunan, we have 2 tally marks. Therefore, on the frequency, we write 2. Okay? And so with English, since we have 2 tally marks here, then in the frequency table, we have to write 2. ESP has 1 tally mark, so we have to write 1. And so with other subjects. So all you have to do in step 4 is to count the number of tally marks and i-write na to siya sa ato ang frequency table or the third column. Okay, next step is, this is already the last one. So after writing the frequency, now you're going to finalize the table. Make sure that your table has a title. Okay, so this is already the final product on how to organize the data and group data using a frequency distribution table. So this is now here the final output. We have here the frequency distribution table of the most liked subject of the class of the grade 7 Baybayin. So that is how we gather statistical data and we organize the data in a frequency distribution table. So the steps are very detailed, so therefore dili gyud mo maglisod learners. So we do hope that you learned our competency for this week for the Mathematics 7. Grade 8 lessons will be discussed after a short break. This is Astral Academy Cyber School.
Still here in Astral Academy Cyber School. Alright, so Ma'am LV, we're done with grade 7 mathematics. So karon magpadayon ta sa ato ang grade 8 mathematics. Quarter 4, week 2 of course. So our lesson is all about applying theorems on triangle inequalities. Now, why do we need to study this lesson? It is because
Triangle inequality theorem is a useful tool in identifying a given set of three dimensions if it forms a triangle or not. So through these theorems on triangle inequalities, you learners will be able to apply these concepts in solving real-life problems. Take note, learners, that at the end of this lesson, you will apply theorems on triangle inequalities. Alright? So, actually, Ma'am LV, there are 5 theorems on triangle inequalities. And then, ang tulo ani nga mga theorems, na-discuss na nato last meeting. Okay? So, ang focus na ito karon, yes, i-discuss gyud na ito ang 5, but we're going to apply the theorems in solving a certain problem. Now, let us start with our first theorem for triangle inequality theorem. So, we have here theorem 1. Okay, here. So, theorem 1, or the SSAA, the relationship of the sides of a triangle to its corresponding opposite angles. So, theorem 1 here states that if one side of a triangle is longer than a second side, then the angle opposite the first side is of course larger than the angle opposite the second side. So, yun na kay sabton si theorem 1. It's because, ang concept lang niya is, if the longer the side, so given the side sa triangle, the longer the side, larger pod ang opposite angle niya. So kung shortest kinamubuan siya nga side in a given triangle, then of course ang opposite angle niya the smallest pod. Okay? So here in our given figure, so we have here triangle ABC. As you can see, side AB measures 4. And then side BC or side CB measures 5. And then side AC measures 7. So, sa figure pa lang, makabalo na ta, unsa nga angle ang kinadak-an, unsa pod nga angle ang kinagamyan. Again, theorem 1, nagpasabot nga dako nga side or taas nga side, ang opposite nga angle, largest pod. Okay? So here, what do you think is the largest angle sa ato ang given triangle? So, klaro kaayo that the largest angle is angle B. Okay? So, angle B here is the largest angle. It is because the side opposite to angle B is the longest side. Okay? And then, what do you think is the smallest angle? So, this one. That is angle C. So, angle C here is the smallest angle. It is because by theorem 1, shortest side man si side AB, which is the opposite side of the angle C. So, ana lang ka-simple ang theorem 1. Now, let us apply this theorem, class, in our example. Okay? So, timan-an ha. The longer the side, the larger the angle. The shorter the side, the smaller the opposite or its opposite angle. Okay? So, we have here triangle TBA. So, what do you think, class, is the largest angle in this triangle? So, it's very obvious that the longest side is this side, BT or TB, which measures 18 units. Okay? And then, the opposite angle man of this side is angle A. So, this angle, then we can say that angle A is the largest angle. So, yun ana lang yun. So, atong isulat, angle A is the largest angle. Okay? And then, what do you think is the smallest angle? So, here, the smallest angle is, of course, this angle, angle T. What is the reason? Yes, that is theorem 1. Since si side BA or si AB is the shortest side, then ang opposite angle niya, which is the angle T, is the smallest angle. So, angle T here is the smallest angle. Okay? Now, if you are going to write the measures of the angle in ascending order, so kinsa man nga angle ang maguna, of course, the smallest one. So, we have angle, so angle T first, and then followed by what angle? So, that is, of course, angle B. And then, the last one, ang pinakadako, that is angle A. Okay? So, this is writing the angles in ascending order based on their measure. So, yun na lang yun sa theorem 1. So, given ang figure, given the sides of the triangle, we can easily determine o kinsa ang largest angle and then the shortest one. Okay? Now, how about Theorem 2 of the triangle inequality theorem? Okay? LV, what is Theorem 2?
Okay, Theorem 2 states that if one angle of a triangle is larger than a second angle, then the side opposite the first angle is longer than the side opposite the second angle.
Okay. So actually, Ma'am LV, si Theorem 2 is the converse.
Bali.
Oh, yes, converse
Theorem
of
1.
Theorem 1. So kung si Theorem 1, given the sides of the triangle, then we can determine the largest and the smallest angle. Si Theorem 2, given ang mga angles. So given the angles of a triangle, we can easily determine, by Theorem 2, we can easily determine o kinsa nga side ang longest o kinsa pod nga side ang shortest. So for Theorem 2, ang pasabot lang niya is the larger the angle, the longer its opposite side. Okay? And then the smaller the angle, the shorter its opposite side. So here in our figure, we have here triangle BAC. And as you can see, si angle B ang kinadak-an nga angle, which measures 78 degrees. Okay? Therefore, what do you think is the longest side of this given triangle? So, klaro kaayo, that is side CA or side AC. So,
Simply
kaninga
the
side.
opposite side.
Yes, because this side is the opposite of this angle, which is the largest angle. So, again, side AC is the longest side of this given triangle. Now, class, what do you think is the shortest side of this given triangle? So, by Theorem 2, that is, right, that is side BA or side AB. So, kaninga side. Ang sakto ba? Yes, no?
44 degrees.
We have, since si angle C man ang pinakagamay nga angle, which is 44 degrees, then we can say that its opposite side is the shortest side. Okay? So, here.
Figure mo lang.
Sa figure lang, no, murag dili.
Shortest. But actually, based on the given, then based also with the theorem, we can
Yes.
say that the opposite side of the smallest angle is the shortest side.
So, ubang figure manggod makalinlang,
Yes.
no,
So, magbase yun ta sa given.
So, dapat magbase ta sa given, and of course, we're going to apply the theorem sa dayon kung maka-encounter magnani nga problem. Okay? So, now let us have an example applying theorem 2 on triangle inequality. So, here. So, if we have triangle, this one, wait for a while. Okay, so this. So, triangle TAB. So, learners, what do you think is the longest side? Okay? So, based on the figure, klaro kaayo that the longest side is, of course, side BA or side AB. Because the opposite angle of this side is the largest angle. Okay? Klaro man nga 65 degrees ang kinadak-an nga angle sa given. And what do you think is the shortest side? So, of course, this side BT is the shortest side because based or applying theorem 2, the smallest angle man is angle A. So, its opposite side is side BT. So, that's why makaingon ta nga shortest side is side BT. So, ina na lang concept ni Theorem 1 and then ni Theorem 2. So, again, Theorem 1, given the sides of the angle, we can easily determine the largest and smallest angles. Theorem 2, converse. Given the angles, we can easily determine the shortest and the longest side of the given triangle. Now, let us proceed to our Theorem 3. Okay? So, what is Theorem 3 all about, Ma'am LV?
Theorem 3 is the triangle inequality theorem.
Okay.
Okay, actually we already discussed this one
Yes.
last episode. Okay, so triangle inequality theorem states that the sum of any two sides' length of a triangle is greater than the third side length.
Okay. So here. So again, Theorem 3 states that the sum of the lengths of any two sides of a triangle is greater than the length of the third side. So we have here this figure. We have triangle ABC. Theorem 3 states that, ingon anira, if we are going to add side AC and side BC, then it is greater than the remaining side, which is side AB. So another, if we are going to add side BC and then side AB, then it is greater than the other side or the remaining side, which is
AC. Okay? And then, another is, if we are going to add side AB and side AC, then it is greater than, or its measure is greater than what? What side? That is side BC. Okay. So if ing satisfy, given a triangle class, ming satisfy aning nga theorems or aning nga mga statements nga ang sum sa measure sa duha ka sides sa triangle is greater than the remaining side, then meaning to say ning satisfy sa theorem 3, or meaning to say ang triangle is or does exist gyud. Kung
Yes.
anak man gani ang case. Alright? Now, let us have an example applying Theorem 3 of triangle inequality. Okay, here. Alright. Now, for example, we are going to find the possible values of x, okay, nga ning satisfy sa ato ang Theorem 3, which is all about triangle inequality theorem. Okay? So, in solving for the possible values of x class in this given figure, so we have two options. Okay? Ang first option na to, what if si AC or si x is the longest side? So, what if AC is the longest side? Then we can have this inequality, this one, 12 plus this side AB plus this side BC, which is 17, is greater than the remaining side, which is x. Okay? Now, if we are going to find the possible values of x here, then we simplify. So, 12 plus 17, that is, of course, 29. So, 29 here, we now have 29 is greater than x, or x is less than 29. Okay? So, this is the first option. So, we need the second option para mahibaw-an gid nato ug unsa ang mga possible values of x nga dapat mo satisfy sa ato ang triangle inequality theorem. Alright? So, for our second option, what if class, if this side BC is the longest side? So, if side BC is the longest side, then we can have this inequality, x plus 12. So, this side AC plus this side AB is greater than the remaining side, which is 17, or side BC. Okay? Now, if we are going to solve for the value of x here, then we are going to apply the APE, addition property of equality. So, we subtract both sides by 12. So, we now have x plus 12 minus 12 is greater than 17 minus 12. Again, we are going to solve for the possible values of x here. And then simplifying, 12 minus 12 is 0. So, we have x here. And then 17 minus 12, that is equal to 5. So, we now have x is greater than 5. So, this is the result of our second option. Now, if we are going to combine the result, then we now have the concept that the possible values of x day class are dapat si x greater pa ni 5, but x less than 29. So, writing that, we have x must be less than 29, but x here is greater than 5. Okay. So, nga namang less than 29 si x dapat ng LV. It's because if 29 si x na to dire or greater pa ni 29, then dili na siya mo satisfy sa ato ang triangle inequality theorem. Okay, if ever
going to add the
yes,
12
the
and
2,
17, it's not greater than the 29 anymore.
yes. And then, how about si x dapat greater than ni 5? Anong dili man pwede si 5 below? Okay? Because if we are going to add, if we're going to add 12 and 17 here, and then, if you're going to add 12 plus, ibutanta lang 5. Okay? Ibutanta lang x is equal
That's
to
17.
5. 5 plus 12, that is 17.
Should be
17
greater
is
than
not
third
greater
side,
than
yes.
17. So, dapat dako pa ang result and sum is dako pa ang result sa third side. So here are the possible values of x. So dapat si x less than 29 but should be greater than 5. So what are the possible values?
So greater than 5, we have 6.
We have 6. So the range would be 6 to
28.
28. Okay, so mao ni mga
So
possible
we
values.
have to do the two options, gid ma'am Gay, no?
Yes, dapat yun nga himuon or isolve sa ginato ang duha ka options para makadetermine ta sa mga possible values na x if maka-encounter ta ani nga problem. And again,
pwede nimo i-check ang imong answer if may satisfy ba sa ato ang triangle inequality theorem. Okay? So, again, the possible values of x here are ranges from 6 to 28, or could be x is less than 29 and x is greater than 5.
Yes.
Okay, so I hope na sabtan. Say, triangle inequality theorem 3. Right? Now, let us proceed to our next theorem, the exterior angle inequality theorem. Okay, here. So, Ma'am LV, what is the exterior angle inequality theorem?
Okay, exterior angle inequality theorem states that the measure of an exterior angle of a triangle is greater than the measure of either remote interior angle.
Okay. So,
Na-discuss na po din siya,
actually,
Ma'am Gay.
na-discuss na nato
Yes,
last time.
last episode.
So, as a sort of review lang, so given this figure, our exterior angle here is angle 4, and the remote interior angles are angle 1 and 2. When we say remote interior angles, these are the angles na wala ni form og linear pair sa atuang exterior angle. So again, angle 4 here is the exterior angle, and 1 and 2 are the remote interior angles. So the concept of exterior angle inequality theorem, class, is this one. See, exterior angle should be greater than either of the two remote interior angles, and then ato ang exterior angle should be what? Is equal to the sum of the measures of our remote interior angles. Now, let us have an example. Let us apply this theorem, okay, in solving this problem. Now, suppose, class, the measure of angle A here is 120 degrees, and the measure of angle C here is 50 degrees. Now, what do you think is the measure of angle D? Okay? So, in this case, pwede na ito ma-apply si exterior angle inequality theorem. Right? Take note that the exterior angle is equal to the sum of the measures of the two remote interior angles. Then we have 120 degrees, the exterior angle, is equal to the sum of angle C and angle D. Okay. Now, if we are going to substitute the values, we now have 120 degrees is equal to, since angle C here is 50 degrees, then substituting it, we now have this one, plus the measure of angle D, the unknown. So, ito ang i-find ang measure ni angle D. Now, if we are going to use the addition property of equality para si angle D na lang mabilin sa pikas, or pwede na po tayo mag-transpose, we now have 120 degrees minus 50 degrees. And that is equal to the angle D. So, 120 minus 50, that is 70 degrees. And that is the measure of angle D. So, DI, given this problem, angle D here measures 70 degrees. Okay? So, since the exterior angle is the sum of the measures of the two remote interior angles. So, 50 plus 70, that is 120 degrees. So, I hope na sabtan sa exterior angle inequality theorem. Now, let us proceed to our last theorem, the hinge theorem, and its converse. Okay? Ma'am LV, what is the hinge theorem?
Okay, hinge theorem, or SAS inequality theorem, states that if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, but the included angle of the first triangle is greater than the included angle of the second, then the included angle of the first triangle is larger than the included angle of the second. Okay, so that is all about hinge theorem.
How about the converse of the
Okay,
hinge
so it has
theorem?
also a converse of the hinge theorem. So the converse of hinge theorem, or the SSS inequality theorem, states that if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, but the third side of the first triangle is longer than the third side of the second, then the included angle of the first triangle is larger than the included angle of the second.
Okay, so actually, na-discuss na po nato ni
Yes,
last time.
ano na po
Na-explain na
bang
nato si hinge theorem and its converse. So, balikon lang nato. So, duha ka triangles ang ma-involve. Okay? So, if ang duha ka sides sa ato ang isa ka triangle congruent sa duha ka sides sa isa pud ka triangle, and then the included angle of the first triangle or the second triangle baka is greater than the included angle of the other triangle, then that means that the opposite side ato nga included angle is dako pa sa opposite side sa isa ka angle. So here in our illustration, so we have triangle ABC and triangle DEF. So the included angle of the first figure is 40 degrees and the included angle of the second figure is 65 degrees. So klaro kaayo nga si 65 degrees ang dako og measure. So therefore, it follows that applying hinge theorem, it follows that the opposite side of the included angle 65 degrees is longer pa than the opposite side of angle 40 degrees. So yun ana ra gyud ang concept ni hinge theorem. So converse of the hinge theorem given ang opposite side sa included angle. So parihaan nga figure. So in this first triangle ABC, the opposite side of the included angle measures 3.2. In the other triangle DEF, the opposite side of the included angle measures 3. It's very obvious na 3.2 ang dako pa. So it follows na dayon that the opposite angle of this side is greater or larger than the opposite angle of this triangle. Okay? So, yung ana ra si converse, si hinge theorem and its converse. Now, let us proceed to its example. We're going to apply the hinge theorem, okay, in solving this problem. So, given this figure, we're going to find the possible values of x. Okay? So, as you can see, we have triangle RST and triangle VWX. So, the included angle in the first is angle S, which measures 100 degrees. And the second one, the included angle is 80 degrees. Okay? So, here's angle S ang dako pa kaysa ni angle W. Then, by the hinge theorem, we can say that the opposite side of angle S, 2x minus 1, is greater than the opposite side of angle W, which is x plus 4. Okay? Now, finding the possible values of x, we can use transposition method. So, transposing x to the other side of the inequality, we have 2x minus x is greater than copy 4 and transpose negative 1 to the other side. It becomes positive 1. Okay, so we now have this one. 2x minus x is greater than 4 plus 1. Okay, in transposition method, take note that the property behind it is the APE, or the addition property of equality. Now, simplifying, 2x minus x is of course equal to x. And then 4 plus 1 is equal to 5. Therefore, we now have the possible values of x. X should be greater than 5. Okay, to satisfy the hinge theorem and its converse. So what are the possible values of x? Greater than 5 months should be
6, 7,
to positive infinity. So daghan gyud kaayong possible values na x. So that's all about triangle inequality theorem. So I hope nasabtan kung saan pag-apply sa theorem 1, theorem 2, 3, the exterior angle inequality theorem and the hinge theorem and its converse in solving a certain problem. So, Mathematics 9 will be discussed after a short break. This is Astral Academy Cyber School.
nga sa TV, mag-aral ng maigi to get the lessons easily. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. Tayo, tayo na. Let's come and learn together, supporting one another. We love, we care, we share. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fun, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time.
And now we're back, still here in Astral Academy Cyber School. Okay, so learners, di na ito kalimtan ang ato ang second attendance marker. So makita karon sa inyong screen.
Alright. So this time, let us now have our grade 10 mathematics, Ma'am Gay. So our competency for this week is to calculate a specified measure of position of a set of data. So that would be our target for this afternoon. By the way, so why are we learning these things? Well, calculating a specified measures of position of a set of data is important because it is just the same as kanabitang mawala ta, Ma'am Gay, when we're lost, di ba, we have a GPS or we also have the Google Map, di ba? So, if nana sila, so we can identify asa tadapita and where to go nga direction, okay? So, same thing in statistics. So, in statistics, it's important to learn the measures of position because it would tell us where the data point is. And by that, if kabalota kung asa ang data, what does this means and unsa ato mabuhat ana nga data.
Okay, so that is the importance of calculating the measures of position. So we already discussed this one last episode also, Ma'am Gay, that the measures of position that we have is the quartile, the decile, and the percentile. So for the quartile, from the word itself, quartile, no? So it is, the data is divided into 4. That's right, okay? So for the decile, it is divided into 10. And for the percentile, it is divided into 100. Now, since we're going to calculate, now this time let us have an example. Okay, so let us learn how to calculate a specified measures of position. So in this example, we have here given data, okay, the 3, 13, 11, 11, 5, 4, and 2. So we're going to calculate for the first quartile, the third decile, and the 20th percentile. Okay? So tulo ang atong isolve ani Ma'am Gay. So Ma'am Gay, if we're going to calculate a measures of position, so first thing that we're going to do is arrange the given data in ascending order. Okay? So mo ginaim atong first nga buhatan. Now here is our data. So we have to arrange it into ascending order. So if we're going to arrange it into descending order, so mag-una na si, so when we talk about ascending, that is from smallest to biggest value. Okay, so we have here, we start with 2, 3, 4, 5, 11, 11, and 13. So after we arrange the data into ascending order, then it's time to solve na dayon or calculate a specified measures of position using the Mendenhall and Sinsich method, which we already also discussed this one last episode. And in solving a specified measures of position, we have its formula. Specified formula. For the quartile, we have here the Q sub K is equal to K over 4 multiplied by N plus 1. A K here tell us kung unsang number or quartile, percentile, decile ang imong gusto nga i-solve, and our N here is the total number of elements in the given data. And so with the decile here, we use the formula D sub K is equal to K over 10, since for decile, it is divided into 10 equal parts, and then multiplied by N plus 1. And so with the percentile, we have here a formula, P sub K is equal to K over 100 times N plus 1. Okay, so dali ra kaayo no if we are familiar with the different formulas. But the very first thing nga buhaton nimo is, ayaw kalimot, arrange the data into ascending order. Now, since it's already arranged in ascending order, or from smallest to largest value, now, since we're asked to solve for the first quartile, so that means you have to solve for Q sub 1. Okay? Kay gipangita man nimo ang imuhang first quartile that is given, or the problem. So therefore, the next step is we have to substitute it with our given formula. So here we have here Q sub K, so that means we have here Q sub 1. Now substituting K by 1, we now have 1 over 4 times our N here is the number of elements of the given data. So let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Okay, 7 is our N, the value of N. So therefore, we're going to substitute 7 into N. So we have here 7 plus 1. Now simplifying, we have here 7 plus 1 is equal to 8. So therefore, we have here 1/4 times 8. And 1/4 times 8, that is equal to 8 over 4. And simplifying 8 over 4, that is equal to 2. Okay? 8 divided by 4 is equal to 2. So therefore, quartile 1 is the second, okay, element of the given data. Not the value of quartile 1 is equal to 2. No. The quartile 1 is the second element. So based on our given data, quartile 1 would be equal to the second element man. So we have here first element, second element. So that is equal to 3. So therefore, quartile 1 or first quartile is equal to 3. Okay? So same thing abuhaton nato sa ato ang decile. Now, in this problem, if we are asked for the third decile, therefore, we have to substitute K by 3. So we now have here D sub 3 is equal to 3 over 10 multiplied by, and of course, still, we have here 7 elements of data. So we have here 7 plus 1. So simplifying, 7 plus 1 is equal to 8. So therefore, we have here 3 over 10 times 8. And 3 over 10 times 8, that is equal to 24 over 10. And 24 over 10, if we're going to simplify that one, that is equal to 2.4. And if we're going to estimate that 2.4, that would be equal to 2. So pasabot, the third quartile is on second element also. Second element. So, if you're going to count also on, balik na punta sa ato ang given nga data. So, let's count on sa second element. The first element is 2, the second element is 3. Therefore, si third decile daw gihapon class is equal to 3. Okay? So, ingon ana lang. After following the formula, you have to locate which element ang na nga problem. Okay, so now, what if we are asked to look for the 20th percentile? So therefore, we have to use this formula, P sub k is equal to k over 100 times n plus 1. And so, since we're looking for the 20th percentile, therefore, you have to replace k or substitute k by 20. So this is now equal to P sub 20 is equal to 20 over 100 multiplied by n. Again, there have 8 elements, so we have 8 plus 7 plus 1. And if you're going to simplify, 7 plus 1 is equal to 8. So we now have 20 over 100 multiplied by 8. 20 times 8 is equal to 160. So we now have 160 over 100. And if you're going to simplify 160 by 100, divided by 100, that is equal to 1.6. And if you're going to estimate that one, that would be equal to 2. So therefore, pasabot gihapon ni 20th percentile, it's on the second element. Same on the Japanese lang mga value. So the second element is, right, it is equal to 3. Okay, so therefore, the 20th percentile of the given data is equal to 3. Okay, so that's it. That is how we calculate specified measures of position. Balik ko na to. All you have to do is, the first thing is you have to arrange it into ascending order. After that, you have to use the specified formula of a specific measures of position. For the quartile, take note, the divisor is equal to 4. For decile, take note, mag-matter lang yun siya sa divisor. Decile is for 10, and percentile is 100. Okay, so that is how we calculate a specified measures of position, quartile, decile, and percentile. Okay, so we do hope that you learn our lessons for this afternoon. So, Ma'am Gay, before ta mag-end,
Of course, we have to thank our production team here. So we have Sir Julio, Sir Saavedra, Sir Abapo, Ma'am Leia, and yes, Ma'am Leia. Okay, so and of course, pasalamatan po nato ang atuang mga learners. Of course.
And of course, Ma'am Gay, before ta mag-goodbye, let's not forget our third attendance marker. It's already on the top of your screen, so learners, take note. Okay, so learners, see you in our next live. This has been Miss Elvin Nueva
And Ma'am Gay Saavedra.
This is Astral Academy Cyber School. Bye!